Today we continue in our prophetic study. I'm Andrew Whaley. This day we introduce the prophet Jeremiah. Jeremiah continues in many of the same themes that Isaiah did, these themes of judgment and restoration. But while Isaiah focuses primarily on the time period leading up to the exile and then the time coming out of the exile, Jeremiah is right there in the final days of Jerusalem and in the midst of the exile itself. This book basically begins in the 7th century and continues on through the Babylonian captivity. Much like Isaiah, Jeremiah, we believe, also was sort of a school of prophetic thought, but the actual Jeremiah, the person, we believe, is responsible primarily for the first 20 chapters of the book. Chapters 1 through 20 are a strong indictment against Jerusalem for failing to keep the Torah. So what distinguishes the prophet Jeremiah then from his other prophetic brothers? Well, he was one from the northern kingdom, though prophesying in the south. So he's not a native to that land. Being from the northern kingdom, he's also designated a Mosaic prophet, which means he follows in the lines of the great teacher Moses as one whose words are the very word of God. These are not just Jeremiah's good ideas. God is speaking directly through him as a Mosaic prophet. Second, Jeremiah comes from the priests of Anathoth. King Solomon banished the priest Abiathar to Anathoth when he came to power, thus removing him from the royal court there in Jerusalem. This would mean then, if Jeremiah is from the priests of Anathoth, he too is an outsider to the royal court, which kind of gives him freedom to offer an even stronger critique of temple and palace practices. Now, prophets can be difficult to read because most of what they say is poetry and there's no real story to follow. But there are several places in Jeremiah that are narrative. We have the story of Jeremiah's call to become a prophet. We have his temple sermon. We have Jeremiah's trial where he is supposed to be put to death but keeps prophesying anyway. And then we have the way of the scroll, when Jeremiah's friend Baruch publishes this scroll. It so upsets the king that the king destroys it, yet the scroll is reiterated in a new and expanded version. By seeing how the king wants to destroy this scroll, it's very clear that the words of Jeremiah were a dire threat to the political leadership in Jerusalem. They did not want his words being read or followed. The other two sections of Jeremiah are from chapters 37 to 45, which really focus in on the final days of Jerusalem before it is destroyed. And then finally, chapters 46 to 51, what we call the oracles against the nations. Here we develop the theme of Yahweh as sovereign not only over Israel, but over all of creation. And finally, we hear of the fall of Babylon. Jeremiah is a difficult prophet to read. There will be some language that is disturbing and upsetting, but stick with it and listen for where God may be speaking to you in all of this judgment and in all of this mercy.